shame on me for not remembering this. I think it was Sam Farmer from the LA Times who tweeted out that the next NFL meetings will be held at the Ritz-Carlton Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury's sweet abode there in the Valley of the Sun in Arizona, which had a lot of conversation. Folks had a lot of fun and was inspiration for someone else who was at home. So they went with the full Lego version of the house, which was a pretty impressive pull. But more importantly, the drafting was very strong by Cliff Kingsbury's team, the Arizona Cardinals. The man pulling the strings on a lot of that, Steve Keim, joins us. Steve, when they put up your picture next to Cliff's, it just didn't match for the background.
That's true, Mike. I actually I never want to stand beside Cliff. I tell people all the time I always appreciated standing beside Bruce Arians much more.
We had BA on Friday, and he was doing his draft from the Lanai on Thursday. They've had a heck of an offseason. And you guys really reworked your deal here pretty quickly. First, let's just get to the blocking and tackling of the draft. A lot of folks were skeptical. Now going through the experience, how was it?
I mean, I actually, Mike, I thought it went off extremely smooth, particularly when you consider what an unprecedented time. And, you know, you've covered drafts before. Obviously, Fred Godelli's produced 15 drafts before. I just feel like the people who broadcast it did a fantastic job.
They did. They did. The folks at ESPN and NFL Network did an exceptional job of incorporating so many things. Were you conscious that the camera was on almost all the time and just a little bit different feel compared to when there is a camera in the draft room?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was, you know, a little tentative at times, but, you know, I think it was really as smooth as it gets. And I knew from the league that they were only going to show us around our draft picks, so I felt pretty comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Was there as much trade conversation as there normally is? We know we went through the top 10 without a trade. Did the chatter go down significantly, or was it at the normal pace?
I felt like it went down a little bit, Mike, just because of the speed of the draft and doing it virtually made it a little more difficult.
Mm-hmm. There's some 30 trades in the draft, not abnormal, but especially at the top, those moves weren't there. Okay, so we get to your pick at number 8, and Isaiah Simmons, obviously a really unique player. You guys have used unique players on your defense to move around in the past, so I'll get to that part of it in a second. First, what did you like about the kid that you wanted to take him there at number 8?
Well, love the person, love the player. The speed, the length, the athleticism is exceptional. This is my 22nd draft, and I can't recall evaluating a player with this guy's particular skill set. You know, he can play the middle half. He can cover tight ends. He can blitz. He can play in the hash. So the guy has a unique skill set and brings a tremendous amount of versatility in our defense.
Steve, there was a time in the NFL where you'd evaluate a player like that, and people would be reticent to pick him because they couldn't find a place for him. Your experiences with Tyrann Mathieu, Patrick Peterson, does that help you guys visualize a little bit differently what somebody like Simmons can do in multiple roles?
I think so, Mike, and I think it's looking at what a player can do. And this league has become a mismatch league. It's about you know, lining up and finding deficiencies in a defense. And when you have a player like Isaiah Simmons who can cover tight ends and backs and all the things he can do differently, really his versatility is his strength. So to me, you know, you look at the way Clemson used him. We'll do a number of similar things. We'll play him a little bit of strong safety. We'll play him in the box as our Mo linebacker. He'll also play out on the slot at times. So there's a number of things you can do with a guy like this. I just know that I have not scouted a player who was 6'4", 238 pounds, ran 4.3, and also had 100 tackles, 8 sacks, and had the production to match. So it's not a projection. The guy's a good football player.
Right. And that's a good point. You've seen it happen against really good competition, playing in those playoff games too. You just see the number of LSU and Bama kids and Oklahoma kids that get drafted. You know that he's played against some elite guys. Then I want to go to Josh Jones, your offensive tackle who you picked out of Houston. How stunned were you that he was still available there for you when your pick came up in the 3rd round?
Very shocked, Mike. He was in the top 30 of our big board, and a guy that I watched at length at the Senior Bowl. Thought he did a fantastic job down there against the top competition. He's got natural knee bend. He's athletic. He's rangy as a pass protector. So he's a guy that we think has tremendous upside and can play the right or the left side.
And then the questions become, why does he drop? And we all sit on the outside of the draft, Steve, and we'll see a player who everyone had rated pretty high, and they start to drop and say, okay, there was a neat question. He didn't have a terrific Senior Bowl compared to some of the other players. When you're in that chair, do you start asking yourselves the same question? Why is this guy dropping so fast compared to where we have him on our board?
Yeah, I mean, I think it always raises some red flags, Mike. But at the end of the day, when you do your due diligence, and we have a great relationship with Dana Holgerson, and Cliff is very close with the offensive line coach at Houston.
Right.
We felt great about the information we had on the player and the person. So the selection was easy for us. He fit a organizational need, positionally, and as well as a guy that we felt like could play both sides. So his versatility is also a strength.
So, everybody runs around on the Monday or the Sunday after the draft and they put out draft grades. Not like we ever go back and look at them 3-4 years later. Sometimes we do. But the Pro Football Focus guys gave your grade an A+. When you get a grade of C or D, you say, oh, those guys don't know what they're talking about. What about when people give you grades of A or A+ for your draft? How do you feel the next morning?
I mean, I think it's always better than getting those poor grades, but you got to temper your enthusiasm. You know how it is, Mike. I mean, we haven't played a game yet, but the thing that excites me probably the most is not only do you see a draft where we felt like we added players but our second round pick, essentially, the way I look at it is we added DeAndre Hopkins. And our fifth round pick, I feel like we added Kenyon Drake, our dynamic running back. So we felt like we added two additional players that are great veterans.
You talk about the Hopkins selection, what that does for your offense in general. What have your conversations been like with DeAndre? Because with Fitz still there and Kyler Murray now going to year 2, it really all of a sudden has quickly flipped to an explosive, exciting offense once again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is extremely excited, adds another dynamic playmaker. So again, to be able to give a young quarterback an experienced receiver who's had a tremendous amount of success is certainly bodes well for our offense.
Steve, there's a part of the draft that ends and everybody's, okay, it was great, thanks, we appreciate it, good luck. But the work begins at late 6th, then the 7th round for undrafted free agents. I'm thinking your team, Justin Murray, was an undrafted player, didn't start with you guys, but ended up starting, I think, about a dozen games for you last year at tackle. So those undrafted players are hugely important. Some make every roster. How did that process change this year compared to other years?
I think it was a little bit like trades, Mike. It happens rapidly, so we had to be prepared. I thought our scouts and our coaches did a great job recruiting a number of good players that have an opportunity to make our club. But you have to be willing to press forward and go pretty fast, and you have to sell the opportunity. And I think that's where Cliff Kingsbury's pad came into play. He could FaceTime those guys from that swanky crib and show it off a little bit.
I never thought of that. It's a great value to the smiles everybody's been having with Cliff's place. Kyler Murray's season really opened eyes because what a competitor. And third and fourth quarter, when you go back, Steve, I thought he played some of his best football at the end of games to keep you in, if not win games. And that's that little intangible people talked about when Kyler was coming out. What's the year 2 growth area for him?
I think it comes down to the professional side of it, Mike, and that's the way he studies, the way he prepares. Not that he didn't before, but we all know that to be an elite quarterback in this league, you have to be prepared mentally more than anything else. And I think the guy has shown that he's got a tremendous skill set. The athleticism is off the charts. I think he's even a better pure passer than people have anticipated. But the thing that's going to separate him is the ability to process, to see things, to make good decisions, get the ball out of his hands, don't take so many sacks. I think those are the areas you're going to see him grow in 2020.
You'd love to see it all under one roof, but we all know that we're heading to the virtual offseason. How can you simply explain to folks what is going to be missing by having this part of the offseason, the preparation for whenever that season does start, happen online and virtually as opposed to all in the building there in Arizona?
Well, it'll be nice that we can still get some of our players up to speed with the mental part of the game, but just not being able to work with our players physically to get them acclimated to the schematical side of it, playing full speed, running routes. That's going to be tough. And hopefully, because of all these obstacles that we're facing, we don't have an increased number of injuries when we do come back and play football. But we're trying to stay on top of guys, make sure they eat right, make sure they train right, and do all the right things this off season.
And to dig down on that, because you don't get a chance to talk to a GM who's got to make all the decisions with the people underneath, for the physical conditioning of the players and that nutrition side, are you guys able to get specific programs to players? Because some have access to a home gym, some have access to just the backyard and outside. So have you been having your strength and conditioning folks tailoring programs to specific players' needs at this point?
We have, and the league allowed us to send out a certain amount of equipment per club to individual players, and we were able to do that. And our strength staff and our trainers are making sure that they monitor all of our player workouts on a daily basis and trying to make sure that those guys are doing the right things off the field.
So what's next for a GM after you go through a draft and you get your undrafted free agents in? It's almost like that major part of building your offseason has come to an end. What's the next biggest thing on your hit list?
I'd like to say vacation, but that's not an opportunity. It'll be looking at different extensions, Mike, that we have coming up, and players that we want to extend and move forward with for years to come, and obviously just looking at the big picture, making sure that we can take this virtual side of the organization and move it back into the building at some point. The way it's going to work, training camp, and looking at all the different logistics, depending on whether we have a cutback of the season or something like that.
That's probably a great place to wrap up. What is the takeaway that you experienced through this virtual month or so with the draft that you think can carry over to hopefully a better day when we're all back in NFL facilities and life is, quote, back to whatever that new normal is? What's the best part of this experience that we can take and become more efficient down the line?
I think it's this, Mike. I think it's the virtual meetings. I think it's just, I really look at the positive side of the draft and look at some of the things that came away. And it was my ability to understand how to use these virtual meetings to our benefit, to be able to get in front of more players, maybe minimize some of the travel with our scouts and coaches.
It'll be interesting because I think every business is going to be affected, and now that's starting to be that chapter people are chronicling in their minds. How will it affect our business going forward? NFL GMs are just the same. Steve, thanks for a few minutes. We do appreciate it. Stay safe out there, and our best to everyone with the Cardinals.
Thanks, Mike. Always great to be with you.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.